Hey there, everybody. Welcome. We're in the middle of a study called A Man After God's Own Heart, the life of David in the Bible. And today we're going to the last chapter of Second Samuel. Second Samuel, chapter number 24. So if you hit the book of First Kings, just start backing up. Very last chapter, Second Samuel 24. Now, David's life in the Bible is found in two different places. The first place is the books of First and Second Samuel. And then the second place is the book of First Chronicles. So we started 43 days ago. Actually, it's been longer than that because we don't do weekends. But about 2 months ago, we started doing the life of David. And we started at 1 Samuel chapter 16 when Samuel is sent to David's house when he was just a young man and he was anointed to be the next king of Israel. And now we're almost at the end of his life. As you follow these books' accounts, we'll see that this is the last matter that David handles as king in this section. And then chapters 1 and 2 of the book of First Kings, we see David brought up again. And it's a transition period to his son, Solomon, to lead the kingdom. And David's going to die in First Kings chapter 2. Well, then we're going to go to First Chronicles after that and start working through the First Chronicles chapters. So the chronological part of the study of David's life will end here after he dies. We'll cover on Monday, 1 Kings 1, and then Tuesday, 1 Kings 2, David will die. And then we're going to go ahead and jump the next day on to First Chronicles. So anyways, I don't know if you wanted to hear all that or knew all that, but now you do. 2 Samuel 24, this is a tragedy here in the chapter. God uses David's own vain interests against himself to judge the people of Israel. So we'll talk about it as we go through. 2 Samuel 24, verse number 1. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel, and he moved David against them to say, Go number Israel and Judah. So God is angry with Israel, and he moves David against them. So God uses David's vanity that he already possesses to judge the people. And he wants them to number them. And to number them means to take a census, to get a count of the people, and not just all of the people, but you're looking to see how big your army could be were you to put out a draft notice and bring all the young men in to fight. For the king said to Joab, the captain of the host which was with him, Go now through all the tribes of Israel, from Dan even to Beersheba, and number ye the people, that I may know the number of the people. So David gives the express order to Joab. And remember, we've talked about Joab's wavering loyalty and how often, if David gave him a task to do, if he didn't think it was the right thing to do, he wouldn't do it. And so Joab disagrees with David, but we're going to see that he follows through anyhow. Joab said unto the king, Now the Lord thy God add unto the people how many soever they be, an hundredfold, and that the eyes of the Lord my king may see it. But why doth my lord the king delight in this thing? Joab's asking him, King, I want you to have the biggest kingdom that any king has ever had. Why do you want us to do this? And he's asking to insinuate it's not a good idea. Notwithstanding, the king's word prevailed against Joab and against the captains of the host. So that tells us that they also disagreed. And Joab and the captains of the host went out from the presence of the king to number the people of Israel. So Joab and the other captains, they do leave, and they're going to go get the census done. And they passed over Jordan and pitched in Aroer on the right side of the city that lieth in the midst of the river of Gad and toward Jazer. Then they came to Gilead and to the land of Tatim Hadshai. And they came to Danjain and about to Zidon, and came to the stronghold of Tyre, and to all the cities of the Hivites and of the Canaanites. And they set out to the south of Judah, even to Beersheba. So when they had gone through all the land, they came to Jerusalem at the end of 9 months and 20 days. And Joab gave up the sum of the number of the people unto the king. So it takes them almost 10 months to do this, 9 months and 20 days. And here's the number. There were in Israel 800,000 valiant men that drew the sword, and the men of Judah were 500,000 men. So a total of 1,300,000 young men that could serve in the military for Israel. Now notice we've kept seeing this pop up, especially during the time of Absalom, Israel and Judah. And this is speaking of the tribe of Judah versus the other 11 tribes that would compose Israel. Yes, Judah is part of the nation of Israel, and this is still before the dividing of the nation into the two separate kingdoms. So I didn't want you to be confused by that. Verse number 10, after David numbers the people, what happens? David's heart smote him. To smite means to strike, or his self-consciousness, his awareness struck him, that he had numbered the people. And David said unto the Lord, I have sinned greatly in that I have done. And now I beseech thee, O Lord, take away the iniquity of thy servant, for I have done very foolishly. Now, to number the people isn't necessarily wrong. Moses did it. God told Moses to number the people. And had God told David to number the people, all would have been well. But God didn't tell him to do that. David did it on his own because of the pride and vanity in his heart. Look at the great kingdom I have amassed. Look at my army of 1.3 million men that could go and fight. I am the great and mighty King David of Israel. And so after he does this, he is convicted of his sin, realizes what he has done. For when David was up in the morning, the word of the Lord came unto the prophet Gad, David's seer, saying, Go and say unto David, Thus saith the Lord, I offer thee 3 things. Choose the one of them, that I may do it unto thee. So conviction always follows the preaching of the word of God. And you could argue that Gad wasn't necessarily preaching in style, but he came to David and said, God has 3 punishments for you because of numbering the people. And that's when he asks for forgiveness and confesses that he's done wrong. So go and say unto David, Thus saith the Lord, I offer thee 3 things. Choose the one of them. Choose thee one of them, that I may do it unto thee. So Gad came to David and told him, and said unto him, Shall 7 years of famine come unto thee in the land? Or wilt thou flee 3 months before thine enemies, while they pursue thee? Or that there be 3 days pestilence in thy land? Now advise, and see what answer I shall return to him that sent me. So Gad tells David that the Lord is offering him 3 punishments for having done what he did. Punishment 1 is 7 years of famine. Punishment 2 is 3 months of military defeat. Punishment 3 is 3 days of disease. And so if you were David, you would probably also choose 3 days of disease. Spoiler alert, he's going to choose the 3 days. Why? We like our suffering to be limited in time. We don't want to suffer for long periods of time. We want to suffer for short periods of time. And so David said unto Gad, I am in a great strait. Let us fall now into the hand of the Lord, for his mercies are great, and let me not fall into the hand of man. Well, the only thing that the Lord would be in control of is the disease. Man would be in charge of the military defeat. And you could argue that man is in charge of the famine, right? If he mishandles what comes in and so forth. So he chooses the 3 days of pestilence or disease. The Lord sent a pestilence upon Israel from the morning even to the time appointed. And there died of the people from Dan even to Beersheba 70,000 men. That's some kind of plague, isn't it? 70,000 people died in 3 days because David in his pride numbered the people. And when the angel stretched out his hand upon Jerusalem to destroy it, the Lord repented him of the evil and said to the angel that destroyed the people, It is enough. Stay now thine hand. And the angel of the Lord was by the threshing place of Araunah the Jebusite. So the angel that God uses is killing the people in Jerusalem. When the tally hits 70,000, God says, that's enough, no more. I am going to stay my hand of judgment. And this happened to have occurred by the threshing floor. It's where wheat is processed. of a man named Araunah. That's where the angel did his work from. So, verse 17, David spake unto the Lord when he saw the angel that smote the people, and said, Lo, I have sinned, and I have done wickedly. But these sheep, what have they done? Let thine hand, I pray thee, be against me and against my father's house. So we see the character and integrity of David return. And he says, Lord, the people didn't do anything wrong. I did the wrong. But remember, verse 1, the people had done wrong also. And that's why God was judging them. But here David, as their leader, is taking full responsibility for what's happened. And he says, please don't punish them any further. Punish me and my family instead, which is rough, isn't it? And Gad came that day to David and said unto him, Go up, rear an altar unto the Lord in the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite. So Gad the prophet comes and tells David, all right, you want to get right with God, build an altar in the same place that the judgment came from, where the angel stood. And I've taught this through the years, and it's a Bible principle. You get right with God where you got wrong with God. Whatever sin was committed, that's where you come back and confess, and you get that right. And so where the judgment came from, David is going to go, and he's going to build an altar. Verse 19, and David, according to the saying of Gad, went up as the Lord commanded. You notice how David is an obedient king to God. Saul was not at all. And Araunah looked and saw the king and his servants coming on toward him. And Araunah went out and bowed himself before the king on his face before the ground. And Araunah said, Wherefore is my lord the king come to his servant? So the man who owned the threshing floor, he comes out when he sees the king's procession coming down the road, and he comes outside and he bows himself to the ground and says, Why have you come to see me, king? And David said, To buy the threshing floor of thee, to build an altar unto the Lord, that the plague may be stayed from the people. So clearly Araunah knows what's happening. He may have even had people in his family die. And so David says, I'm here to buy your threshing floor. I want to build an altar to God, and I want to offer sacrifices on it so that the people can be spared God's judgment. And notice Araunah and his integrity. Araunah said unto David, Let my lord the king take and offer up what seemeth good unto him. Behold, here be oxen for burnt sacrifice, and threshing instruments, and other instruments of the oxen for wood. All these things did Araunah, as a king, give unto the king. And Araunah said unto the king, The Lord thy God accept thee. So when David says, I want to buy your threshing floor, Araunah says, I won't hear of it, Lord. You take what you want. Take the threshing floor, take the oxen to sacrifice, take the instruments and use them as wood to consume the sacrifice. It's yours. You don't have to pay me anything. David's response to that, and I love this response. Oh, where am I? I lost my place. Verse 24. And the king said unto Araunah, Nay, but I will surely buy it of thee at a price. And notice this next statement, Neither will I offer burnt offerings unto the Lord my God of that which doth cost me nothing. David says, if I'm going to sacrifice to God, then I should sacrifice. If I'm going to give God something that didn't cost me anything, it's not a sacrifice to me. It's only a sacrifice if it cost me something. Beautiful, beautiful principle here. So David bought the threshing floor and the oxen for 50 shekels of silver. And David built there an altar unto the Lord and offered burnt offerings and peace offerings. So the Lord was entreated for the land, and the plague was stayed from Israel. And so there it is. David numbers the people. God uses his vanity against him and against the nation of Israel to judge them. And then David recognizes his sin when he hears the word of God from Gad, and he repents. And that's the thing about David. He always repented when he did wrong, every single time. And you and I would be wise to do the same thing. When you've realized you've done wrong and you've sinned against God, take time immediately and make things right with him. All right, there it is. tomorrow, rather, the next time we meet, I should say, we will be in 1 Kings, chapter number 1, and we'll see the end of the life of David until we bring him back again in 1 Chronicles and take it from there. Thanks so much for watching. God bless you. Have a wonderful day.